Hey, welcome back, guys. Let's answer a few more of your questions, shall we? So, someone has asked about doing pencil art on a guitar, pencil, graphite, that kind of stuff. It would seem that this individual has a fairly complex drawing in mind to do on the top of a guitar and wants to then seal it in and have it as a paint job, which actually sounds really cool. But there are some things that you need to be careful about. Probably even some things that I'm not sure about because I've never done it before. First of all, pencil, in my experience, tends to fade a little bit. So you need to be careful when you're doing any kind of paint job that the materials you're using are kind of up to snuff, if you know what I mean, as far as quality. So if the pencil's going to fade, even with the clear coat on there, chances are it's going to fade. So keep that in mind. Also, the adhesion of it. Pencil can rub off and stuff like that. So I mean, you're sealing it in with a clear, that's going to help, that's going to seal it in, obviously that's going to keep it in place. However, it kind of depends on how much of the surface you're covering. If you're just doing some line art, absolutely, no problem there, I would imagine. But if you're shading in the entire surface of this guitar to do some like wild three-dimensional looking artwork, I would think that you might have a bond issue because you've got the bond between the wood and the pencil and then the bond between the pencil and the clear coat. So no matter how hard the clear coat grabs onto the graphite and whatnot, it won't have as much opportunity to grab onto the wood. So you still have that weaker bond in between. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about your coverage and everything while you're doing that. That being said, the clear coat might just go through the pencil and hang onto the wood. Again, I'm not sure, I haven't done it before. And I would also be a little concerned about the chemicals in the clear coat affecting the graphite and causing it to move around and stuff. Particularly if you try to brush it on, that would be probably a terrible idea, I would think. Make sure it's sprayed, and that would cause less risk. You might have the option to use some fixative. A lot of art stores have it. It's for keeping like pencil and pastel in place. And protecting it, so you might have the option of spraying some of that on there first before your clear coat, and that might help. Sorry, I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's my thoughts on it. Next, a question about accenting grain with wood filler. I do have a video on that in which I used polygrout. Now, I kind of used the polygrout just as an experiment to show that you can mix various things with wood filler and do the grain accenting. So what I'm referring to is when you use a colored wood filler or a dark tinted contrasting wood filler and then sand it back after, and it just stays in the open grain and accents the grain. So the polygrout probably isn't your best option. In fact, I'm quite sure it's not the best option. It worked fine when I used it, and it is an option, but a lot of companies sell contrasting color paste wood filler. That's probably a great option. Alternatively, you can mix a dye into your wood filler. Your water-based wood filler with a water-based dye would work fine. That's probably a great option. People use instant coffee sometimes. Also not bad. So consider those. They won't give you the same grainy texture that the polygrout can. So they're a little bit easier to work with, and those might be better choices. Someone has asked how much they should invest in a starter spray gun. Well, that kind of depends. As long as the spray gun is spraying straight and has a decent fan pattern, it should be okay. So if you can get one for relatively cheap, there's nothing wrong with that. I paid, I think, $60 for my larger starter spray guns. I paid half of that for some of my like really cheap touch-up guns, and they don't really work. So the fan isn't even. They'll spray really heavily to the top or the bottom of the fan pattern and not disperse very well. Keep that in mind. I can't really tell you how much to spend. It's up to you. Definitely the gun that I got, the Vilbisk one, the one that I use the most, less than $200 and works great. I've never had any problems with it. It's got a slightly smaller fan pattern than, say, if you were to use like a $700 Seda, and it might not be quite as perfect a dispersion, but it depends on what you're doing as well. If you're trying to do a candy coat job on your car, you need a nice gun. If you're trying to do a solid color on your guitar, maybe not so much. So keep that in mind when you're deciding what to go with for a starter gun. I do have a video up on how to get a spray set up for cheap. I think it was something like that. It was titled, and it kind of shows you what I consider to be your minimum-ish for doing custom paint jobs. So take a look at that. That's not professional quality stuff per se in that video, so keep that in mind. But if you're referring to starter equipment, it should work fine. To the one guy who says I'm a hack and wants to fight me, I covered this in a previous video. I'm in Alberta, in Canada, more specifically in Edmonton, so I don't know, keep in touch. And, oh, 3 or 4 of you over the last little while have said that apparently I look like Christian Bale or Batman, and I've heard that before, but let me assure you, first of all, I'm not a billionaire, and second, I don't look nearly as good in black as they do. That's about it for this week. Thanks for watching, and I hope that answered your questions and that it was helpful. You guys have a lot of questions, which is awesome, so I think this series will probably continue for a while until you guys get bored of me or something. So keep them coming, and thanks again. See you next time.